What's up guys, my name's Paul Claremont, welcome to my channel. So, we've all heard of archangels Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. But in recent times, a new angel has appeared in the spiritual mainstream, and his name is Metatron. An extremely epic name for an angel in my opinion. However, dangerously close to Megatron, the arch nemesis of the Autobot Transformers. Something Shia LaBeouf knows all too well. So, in this video, I'm going to explain the esoteric importance of what Archangel Metatron represents according to Kabbalah, the Tree of Life system. And then I'm going to relate that to Metatrons Cube, the symbolism that he's famously associated with. So if that sounds good to you, let's do it. To give you a bit of an introduction, it's not that Metatron is new, it's more of a new to you type situation, where his name appears in ancient Judaic literature, such as the third book of Enoch, Merkaba and Hakelot literature, which means chariots and palaces, as well as rabbinic writings called Agadah. In spite of that, Archangel Metatron hasn't really been mainstream until the last decade, I would say, within this New Age spirituality movement. At least in Christianity growing up, I know I've never heard this angel's name before. I'm not sure if that's the same in Judaism. If so, let me know in the comments. But other than that, all we have is Alan Rickman in the 1999 film Dogma, where he plays the role of Metatron while God is incapacitated. One last interesting point is that the origin and meaning of the name is contended point, whereas the meanings of the other archangels' names is pretty clear cut, like Raphael means healing of God, Gabriel means strong man of God. There's many possibilities for Metatron. The first idea is that the name could be of magical origin, since it appears in texts where that's already the case for other names of like mystical import. And the term magic would just mean it was just consciously designed by mystics to carry a certain energy, to project a certain vibe or ethos, the same way that we do with restaurants, your blog, your cat, or your Instagram, anything like that. But for the ancients, this would have been done using Gematrion, the Hebrew art of numerology. Other suggestions are the Hebrew words memater, meaning to protect, the word matara, which means keeper of the watch, but it could have also come from the other ancient languages like Greek or Latin. One good theory that I like is the Greek Metatronos, which means after the throne or beyond the throne, because it kind of ties in with what I'm going to talk about. But now let's get into the main subject here. First of all, what is an archangel and why does this subject matter? So for those who aren't mystically inclined, you don't have to think of an archangel as an actual being, like the classic winged person in a robe composed of ethereal light, as Alan Rickman kindly demonstrated. You can think of them as symbols or personifications of key aspects of the human psyche. You can personify them and conceptualize them as real beings for relatability. That's a valid, beneficial, and recommended way of perceiving, as many of you already know. But at a fundamental level, they're more so formless, universal forces. In general, the energy or consciousness that they represent is on the same level as what we call the higher self. We could also call it the higher mind or superconsciousness. And to give an analogy for what that means, if your higher self is water in a tub, then an archangel would be like taking a cookie cutter and creating a separate segment of the water's surface. But it's not a real separation, it's just conventional and observed. It's still a piece of that same higher self energy. And this demonstrates how you can simultaneously perceive archangels as sentient, separate beings, universal forces, and ultimately expressions of your own divine self. Although these forces or beings operate from that same level, each one represents a different function or quality, like I suggested with Raphael and Gabriel. And I'll show you how this corresponds to the Tree of Life in a second. So going back to that cookie cutter analogy, this would be like having different shape cookie cutters, like a dinosaur, a dragon, a shooting star, whatever whimsical cookie shape you want. But you can also think of Power Rangers, how they're all matching in uniforms, but each has different colors, their own personality, and fighting abilities. Okay, so now that we have a good foundation, let me explain the importance and specifics of what Archangel Metatron represents according to Kabbalah and its Tree of Life diagram. In short, Kabbalah are the Jewish mystical teachings as opposed to the exoteric Torah and Talmud books. So, if you're a spiritual seeker, Kabbalistic teachings are designed to help you attain higher spiritual illumination, and for some, eventually attain union with God, also known as enlightenment or self-realization. The Tree of Life diagram, which many of you may recognize, is a major tool of Kabbalah. It's made of these 10 interlinked spheres called sephirot, and for our purposes, these represent the main components of the human psyche in terms of mind, body, and spirit. The tree shows the evolution of these forces, beginning with fundamental consciousness, moving all the way down to physicality, the human body. So where do archangels and Metatron fit into all this? Basically, all the sephira have archangels assigned to them, along with a lot of other symbolism. For example, Gabriel corresponds to Yesod, the foundation. And this is kind of like the subconscious. Michael corresponds to Hod, glory, and this is like the intellect. And then Metatron corresponds to the first one, Keter, the crown, like the crown chakra. The crown is the first thing that comes into existence out of the unmanifest. It's primordial consciousness, our fundamental sense of existing, the I am presence. This is the principle that God expresses itself as I am that I am, Ehyeh. What does that mean? If you close your eyes and just try to see what existing feels like for a few seconds, you'll see that this is the foundation of our experience before any other mental processes come into being, like the idea of a personality. And it's because of this important designation that Metatron has lofty titles like the Lesser Yahweh and the Ancient of Days, which both allude to this principle. He's like the gatekeeper of existence. And this is important to talk about because, like I said, the goal of the spiritual path is to attain recognition and union with this inner I am presence. And this is what we call nirvana. Last, let's tie all that into Metatrons Cube and explain why it's named after Metatron in the first place. So Metatrons Cube is a symbol or glyph classified as sacred geometry, meaning it's a representation of spiritual principles. And its foundation is a pattern called the Fruit of Life, which has 13 radiating circles. And this comes from the famous Flower of Life pattern. It's almost exactly like the evolution of Charmeleon to Charizard. The next aspect is the lines that connect all the centers of those circles to each other. And these lines create various geometries, including the 5 platonic solids, which are said to be the basic geometric template of all physical matter. So basically, Metatrons Cube is an important symbol that represents universal laws. It's representative of the underlying forces that govern the evolution of the physical world and also the internal world of consciousness and mind. For example, with regard to the physical world, the Fruit of Life frame demonstrates the 3 phases of singularity, expansion, and finally, the phase of coalescence and differentiation, meaning where matter forms and begins to organize into planets, stars, and organisms. Then the internal geometries of the cube represent the blueprint or laws for how that evolution is specifically going to unfold. This would be the laws of physics that govern the interaction and behavior of matter. Once again, the question is, why is this symbol named after Archangel Metatron? Like I said, Archangel Metatron represents the I am presence. And when this primordial consciousness comes into existence, it necessarily arises together with a world of experience in which to perceive itself. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to declare the idea, I am. There would be no backdrop for the echo, so to speak. The kind of world we're talking about, though, isn't a manifested one like the one we have with all these objects. It's just a potentiated world at that point. The only thing that's present with the I am is the blueprint for how creation is all going to unfold. And since Metatrons Cube is the symbol, is the blueprint for how this physical and mental world will unfold, it and the I am consciousness, represented by Metatron, are essentially one and the same thing. They're combined. So the final piece of this puzzle is to realize that the background of this image, this symbol, is consciousness. Consciousness is the substrate of this symbol. Or if you want, you can visualize it more blatantly as Archangel Metatron holding the symbol. So there you have it, guys. Those are some basics about the Archangel Metatron and why he's important in the modern spirituality movement. So if you liked my video, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe for more spiritual content. And I'll see you next time. Peace.